of this visit, because it will help you understand what all has been envisaged by both the Prime Ministers, what are the priority areas, and why we are actually focusing on these areas. So let's look at the outcome of this bilateral that has taken place between both the Prime Ministers. Let's look at the first one, which is a strategic partnership roadmap to 2030 launch. So we have 4 years to boost our partnership with New Zealand and make sure that there are various avenues that we explore during this 4 years. So this roadmap also will detail the various facets that we'll bring out to you now. Let's look at Maritime Security Cooperation Agreement, which has obviously been signed. Remember that this entire visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi highlights India's Mahasagar policy, where we are trying to highlight how important the Indo-Pacific region is for the world, for for global leaders to take note, and how India is at the forefront of maintaining security in this region. So maritime security is of utmost importance, and that's what we have signed with New Zealand as well. Let's look at hydrography and nautical cartography collaboration started. So nautical cartography is basically measurements or in the sea in maritime domain, and that will mapping out all the areas in the maritime domain, and that is something that New Zealand and India will collaborate on further. Let's also look at mutual logistics support for navies arranged. So obviously, if there are, if the Indian the Navy contingent wants to dock somewhere near New Zealand, in their area, that's what something that New Zealand can also look at. So that cooperation has also been signed on. Let's look at joint counter-terrorism working group, which has also been established. Remember that India is always pushing forward for, a terrorism-free world. It has called out terrorism and in all its forms on global stages, and New Zealand continues to support India's vision for that. Let's also look at disaster management cooperation MOU, which has been signed. So obviously disaster management is something that both the countries will be looking forward to, collaborating on. Animal husbandry and dairying collaboration advanced. So even in the field of agriculture, animal husbandry and dairy, we are looking at a collaboration with New Zealand. Let's look at trade and commerce ties, which are going to be strengthened further. So trade and commerce, obviously, whenever we sign agreements with various countries, trade and commerce is something that we look forward to. We have a joint action plan on sports as well launched. Remember that PM Lakson even in fact remembered his gully cricket experience while he was meeting Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and he said sports will always be a cornerstone for the friendship between New Zealand and India. Also, let's look at the next outcome, which is the Lothal Maritime Heritage Complex partnership formed. So remember that there is a development of heritage sites as well that we will be looking at with the cooperation of the New Zealand government. Cultural cooperation agreements also signed between ministries. So cultural cooperation, people to people connect is something that both the countries will also be looking to enhance. Let's look at education and skill development, which will obviously be boosted. A lot of Indian students making their way into New Zealand to study and vice versa, and they'll be looking at strengthening that further. Science and tech collaboration expanded. Obviously, this is an area that India will be looking to expand further ties with this country. Let's also look at agri-tech cooperation enhanced significantly. So even in the field of agriculture, we are looking at the enhancement of tech and involvement of tech in it, and New Zealand will in fact help us in that sector. Tourism and people-to-people exchanges also promoted. So tourism, obviously we were getting reports that there might be a direct flight from New Zealand to India and vice versa. So this is something that everyone will be looking forward to enhance tourism over here between both the countries. Let's look at defense and security partnership, which has also been deepened between both the nations. So defense continues to remain our top priority and of New Zealand as well. Let's also look at Indo-Pacific coordination mechanism, which has been strengthened, like I mentioned, in line with the Mahasagar policy of India. We're looking at strengthening Indo-Pacific region. Also, overall bilateral relations elevated strategically. So, like we mentioned, that there is a roadmap that is planned, and we have an overall bilateral relation that has been enhanced to more strategic level. So this is something that we were looking to enhance with New Zealand during this visit. Let me in fact go across to Ambassador Sushil Singhal, who's joining us. He's a former diplomat on this broadcast, to help us understand what really these outcomes actually mean for India and what is the most significant one. Thank you so much, Ambassador, for taking out your time and for speaking to NewsX. We appreciate it. If I can come to you regarding what strikes out the most amongst all these outcomes between India and New Zealand, Ambassador.
Very much, Shivani, for having me in your show. Well, this the relationship with between India and New Zealand. I think this, when we look at after a few years at this visit, it will be the watershed in the relationship, in my view. As we know, this after 40 years, the first Prime Minister visit from India has taken place, and this is building on the visit of the Prime Minister of New Zealand, Christopher Luxon, when he visited India last year in February. That time, they agreed that this relationship need to be taken to its logical conclusion. And at that time, we talked about FTA, and incidentally, it was signed in record time of 9 months, which shows that clarity on the both sides, that what they want to achieve. And it is it's called, of course, a very comprehensive FTA, because it not only talk about the trade, but also investment and and mobility, which India has been demanding. So that shows their intentions, and now they were ready to implement. Then the defense agreement, which was signed in March 25, that laid the foundation of what we are talking about today, because both India and New Zealand are invested in the free movement in the Indo-Pacific. And we know that there are some countries, particularly like China, what they are trying to do, they are trying to control the movement in the international waters, because we know that about 60 to 70% of the global trade passes through this region, and it is very important that everybody has a freedom to move in that area. And when they have talked about this interoperability, because they were signed the agreement on logistics, it gives advantage to India as well as to the New Zealand, because Indian Navy has the capacity and ability to provide assistance, be it in natural disaster, be it in piracy, much beyond the Indian Ocean. And when we have this kind of arrangement, it enhances their capability. Then investment that we are talking about, we have agreed to do for about $20 billion investment in Indian companies over the next 15 years. New Zealand has, as you also mentioned, the technology, but they need to scale, because they have used certain countries and they found that they are not reliable. So what countries like New Zealand are looking is the partners who can be trusted, because for the global supply chains, now economies of scale is no longer a criteria. Now the trust and reliability has become very important, particularly post-COVID. And we have all seen how the countries are using for the global supply chain as a political tool, and controlling the flow of the goods, which is impacting the global supply. And India has come out as a partner who is able, willing to and support the global supply chains. So, and Prime Minister Modi, wherever he goes, he always talk about the importance of the free global supply chain movements. And this is the agreements which have been signed are in furtherance of that. I think I'll stop here. Thank you, Shivan.
All right. Thank you so much, Ambassador Singhal, for your valuable perspective on this issue. In fact, now we have some more breaking news coming our way.